at Channel Islands, Cal State Channel Islands, and at Cal Lutheran, where I teach sociology. And I'm also an IT consultant. That's really my full-time job. I do the teaching because I love it, and I've been doing that for about 15 years. There's a bit of me that's, people have asked, why are you running? Right? Why did you run? Why did you submit your name? My son is about to finish school, and there's a point to that. Why did I want to take this on? We have a lot of important issues that we need to tackle here in Santa Paula. How well are we serving our kids? When I graduated, there was 350 freshmen and only 200 graduated. We didn't have AP classes. We have a lot of that now. We have good rates. But our budget's in crisis, right? And we don't reach out to as many people as we need to. And I hope to address that as a board member.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval, the sole candidate from District 2. We'll move on now to the two candidates for District 5. We'll start with Aaron Dunkel.
Hello, my name is Aaron Dunkel. I have lived here in Santa Paula now for almost 20 years. I grew up in the Central Valley of California. I moved down here to go to Thomas Aquinas College and fell in love with the place, the people, the culture, everything about Santa Paula and Ventura County. And so upon graduating, I stayed here. I stayed here permanently. I made it my home. I've worked in various places since then and returned to my alma mater, and I've been there now working for about 10 years. Outside of that, I've been involved in, I've been committed to youth and scholastic sports as a sports official, and when this opportunity for the school board election came up, I said, what better way to grow my commitment to youth enrichment than joining the school board here in Santa Paula. Some of the things that I've learned as a sports official is that decision is limited by information. A sports official has a limited view on things, and I think bringing that learning to the school board and opening up opportunities for participation such that more information can be available in the decision-making processes will only help the school board. We have a lot facing us. We have a budget that needs some real attention, and that meaningful attention can only be had with the participation of all the stakeholders, the teachers, classified staff, parents, taxpayers, as well as the board and the superintendent. I think this is something that we all need to work on together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunkel. And to the other candidate for District 5, Chris Wilson.
Good evening. I've been in Santa Paula all my life. My father graduated from Santa Paula High School. My wife's parents both graduated from Santa Paula High School. My children have also been through the entire Santa Paula educational system and gone on to college. I myself went to UC Santa Barbara and got a BA in botany. I worked there in a lab for 4 years afterwards until the grant money ran out. Came back to Santa Paula, and I'm a general contractor. I have worked on a lot of historic homes like the Proctor House, Hardison House up on Highway 150. I've been on the school board. I was first elected in 2008 in a time of very challenging economic circumstances, and we had a very healthy reserve at that point, and we were able to get through those hard times without any furloughs or having to do layoffs. We were able to do it with people retiring. We offered some retirement incentives, so I've got a bit of experience with tough budgets. I've also worked in promoting the school bonds that we have now for the elementary district. We've also still got money from a school bond that was passed back in 2008 when I first came on the board, and that has allowed us to do a lot of things. The science and technology building at the high school was built with $5 million from the bond, but we were able to leverage that and get another $10 million from the state. So that was a big project, and that's all I have time to say.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Well, I had asked the first question before you did your introductions, which probably answered the first half of the first question. So let me go to the second half of that question. How do you feel about the teaching of science, particularly evolution? How about sex education? Each of you will have 1 minute to answer. Ms. Colbeck?
I believe in all forms of education and science in itself. It's just that you don't take one side or the other. You give knowledge, and knowledge is always good. It's a way of making students learn. And now with the new science building, as Mr. Wilson said, is that the students have great opportunity to do the labs that they weren't able to do. So we commend the bond from the taxpayers. As to sex education, I work at a pregnancy clinic. We see 150 girls a month in many dire straits. It's really not about sex ed, it's about choices. It's about goal setting. So therefore, I would strike the word sex ed and have classes teaching choices. Make better choices, set your goals, make your goals. And why didn't, and as far as not being in the children, I just wanted to have help all the students get to where most of my children were with showing them the way. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for the other candidate from District 4, Ms. Ornelas.
Thank you. So as far as evolution being taught in the classroom, I feel that the more options our students have of learning, the better. I'm all for more opportunities for our students, and I think that the science lab and having the ability to do those things that our kids could actually do hands-on and give them the opportunity to learn in different ways is best for all of our students. Sex education, I think it is important. I think that our students should have knowledge of that, and I feel that it is part of them understanding what the best decision is for them and what suits them personally as a young adult, and making sure that they have the full information regarding those issues.
Thank you. And now representing District 2, Daniel Sandoval.
I don't know how different of an answer I'm going to give. You know, I do support, you know, science education, being, you know, someone who went to Caltech, right? So evolution is part of science, and so I would expect that to be taught in the schools. As far as sex education, you know, I would agree with Michelle. You know, you want to give people choices. That doesn't mean we should shy away from controversial topics. I mean, sex education is part of that. Some people will choose to have sex, so they should have, like, you know, Mr. Ornelas said, you know, the information that they need to be safe, and to, you know, not ruin their lives, you know. So I'm in their side.
Thank you, Mr. Sandoval. Now we'll hear from the two candidates for District 5. Mr. Dunkel, I'll start with you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I'm not sure how much I'm going to say differently also. I think, you know, the record has shown that, you know, natural selection and the development of species is absolutely true. You can see that in the historical record. You can see that in the fossil record. So I don't anticipate there being any controversy there. As regards sex education, I think that we need to equip our kids with the knowledge and tools necessary in their education, both in their understanding of biology and how to make their choices in life. This is one point, though, where I might say we should be culturally sensitive, and maybe we ought to, find a way to educate the parents after school or something like that, bringing the parents in that conversation also, so that they can have those conversations with their kids.
Thank you. And Mr. Wilson.
I agree. I think that evolution is settled science, and there's no dispute, but that it needs to be taught because we have so much evidence, as Aaron spoke about. And I also believe that sex education is absolutely essential in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Manny?
Okay, so the coronavirus has impacted schools across the country in many different ways and in many similar ways. And despite the best effort of our teachers to teach remotely, it is clear that some students are struggling and falling behind. What are some of your plans for assisting some of these students? And we'll start off with Mr. Wilson.
Thank you for the question. I think that our role as a board member is not so much in the classroom, and that I would just hope to support the staff and administration in their attempts to teach the students. That I think we need to be focused as a board more on the, providing a safe environment and getting the, make sure we have all of the necessary testing, and we need to get all the information mostly before we can even think about reopening schools and allowing kids to be gathering safely. Thank you.
Mr. Dunkel?
This is something that has troubled me and something I've been churning around in my mind, because I do think that there are a number of challenges with the distance learning. We do have a number of funds available to us from the state that do have to be spent before the end of the calendar year. And I know that there are distance tutoring opportunities and maybe some other creative thinking that we could pursue to provide resources for our families here in the school district. That being said, I think another thing we have to be cognizant of is not every household is going to be as proficient in a computer, and technology itself might be one of the barriers that we're going to have to overcome in some way, and that's just going to require a broader conversation.
Mr. Sandoval.
COVID is fundamentally, in Santa Paula at least, an issue of equity. There's no good solutions here. You keep students at home, there's a digital divide that we have to address, right? 30% of our households don't have broadband, right? So we can have hotspots, and that helps, right? But there's still more to the digital divide than that. If you send them to school, right, a lot of their parents are on the front lines, right, or are older. If you bring COVID home, that could be disastrous, right? The facts are that, COVID is hitting Latinos worse in the county than any other group. So we need to be creating partnerships with the city, with the library, with the Boys and Girls Club, with anybody who has resources that we can leverage. And we have to be creative about how we leverage those resources and the ones that we have. For instance, the city has good broadband. Can we leverage that for our students? Those are just some things that we need to think about.
Ms. Ornelas.
Well, I agree with everyone else. There is a lot of difficulties that our families face during the times of COVID. The broadband is a huge one. The fact that maybe it's a child entering kindergarten and they have two Spanish-speaking parents that do not have any idea how to use an iPad or a Chromebook or whatever their students being given to access their online schooling. And that alone is a huge roadblock for that child to even get started in their education. I mean, kindergarten is it's essential for all of our students, but you know, it's internet, it's the fact that parents don't have maybe an understanding or a way of where they can go to get assistance for resources that they don't have or that they don't know are even there during these difficult times. And opening up that line of communication is essential, and it's something that can be improved and should be for all of our families. Thank you.
I just want to commend the faculty and staff of the Unified Schools District. They went from 0 to 20, only 15 seconds? Oh. Sorry, all right. They went from 0 to 20 overnight. So it was a rough start, but we have to give the district credit for getting the hotspots, the Chromebooks. But what we need now is the resources. We need to get people on the telephone talking to parents in the language that they understand. It doesn't work. Even if you have great parents who understand everything, sitting in front of a computer all day long doesn't work. We've talked about engagement. So we're up against the wall on that, but we do need to make sure that we have more parent resources so they can understand in their own language what to do.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right, next question. Although the district-wide test results for the 2018-19 school year improved slightly over the previous year, they are still significantly below the state minimum standards and below the state average. As a board member, are you willing to be personally accountable for improving these results? Are you willing not to run again in 4 years if there is no improvement? We'll start again in District 4. Ms. Ornelas, we'll start with you.
That's a question to start me on. So I believe the board should be involved in making sure that our students have what they need to raise those test scores, assisting the students and the staff, being able to provide, it goes back to the resources for our students to be better engaged and better prepared for those state testings. And without that, I think that it's the uphill battle of the same issue of not having the line of communication in the language that they understand for the parents to maybe push their students to get that additional help to get those test scores up. And not running again in 4 years, well, I mean, I feel that if we do everything as a board, if we do everything that we can, that's a pretty tough one.
All right, thank you. And the other candidate from District 4, Ms. Colbeck.
No, I do not find it acceptable. For the last 4 years, I have been an advocate. I have turned the pie around saying 75% of our students are not succeeding. However, as a board member, you need to be firm. You need to stand up. But it takes a lot of pieces to put together, the LCAP, the community, the board, and that's something that we haven't quite gotten. So not running again, that's not the problem. It's the problem of getting all the pieces to work. Plus, our district has 19% of special ed. Not that we can't make them great, but we are the largest number in the county and possibly right up there in the state. We have a lot of special needs. That's why we need board members committed to be in Santa Paula and administrators that come from Santa Paula that understand our needs to really delve into what the problems are.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval.
Well, first off, you didn't choose me this time, so sure, fire me, right? You know, this has been a perennial problem. I mean, when I graduated 30 years ago, we were in the bottom 10%. And I don't know where we are now specifically, right? But our test scores are still too low. So what do you do about it, right? I mean, we should be, you know, advocating for universal pre-K. We should be advocating for parent education and understanding that it's sometimes not because they don't want to be involved, but because they don't know the system, they don't know the language, they don't have the time because they're working so much. You know, we need to review what we're doing for math because our reading scores have gone up with some interventions, but math is terrible. Why is that? We need to review all of our expenses, and we need to cut things that aren't significantly improving the district. If they're expensive and they are only doing service to a few people, that doesn't make any sense.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the two candidates for District 5. Mr. Dunkel.
Well, I think one thing that a board could do in terms of helping to increase test scores would be affirming those sort of interests and desires that the students themselves have. I don't know, not everybody wants to or has a desire to go to college when they're 14, 15, 16 years old. A lot of people do, some people don't. Some people would rather become an electrician or find some job in the trades. And I think if we can develop meaningful relationships to create a pre-apprenticeship program where they can see things like math actually having real life influence in what they're interested in and affirming that, I think we would see our test scores go up.
Thank you. And Mr. Wilson.
Test scores are, they're continually an issue. I do think I was looking online the other day at the district website and seeing gradual improvement, and I think the entire staff and administration and the board has remained focused on student achievement, and it's the hardest thing that the district faces. And I mean, whether, I think Michelle Colbeck is right, that whether the board member runs again or not is most likely immaterial to that, but the challenge is real, and we have to do everything within the power of the board to bring it about, but it's not an easy problem.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a budget-related question. What is your plan to address the budget shortfall and ensure that the reserve levels do not fall below state mandated levels? And we'll start with Aaron this time from District 5.
Thank you for that question. I think there's a difficulty in just answering that right up here, because when I was watching those board meetings and seeing the agenda items there, we are seeing a $9 million restricted fund deficit and a maybe $3 million whole organization budget deficit. But there was no detail provided, and there was, in my opinion, insufficient conversation in the public at the board meeting in order to understand where those deficits were. I would like to see a task force or an ad hoc committee with the presidents of both unions, as well as some parents and some members of the board, look at that and see where we can go there.
Thank you. We'll stay in District 5. Mr. Wilson?
I have to admit to not being up on the current budget. That's a huge document, and I've been through it plenty of times before in my 8 years on the board. Like I stated earlier, I was on the high school board in 2008 when we faced tough times before. We had a very healthy reserve that helped us get through that. My entire time on the board, we worked to maintain that healthy reserve, which allows us to function and continue to work as well as possible in tough times like this. So, and the budget My experience is it's changing day to day. It really, until you're there in the room with the current things, it's all speculation. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move over to District 4, Ms. Colbeck.
I want to say plan, plan, plan. The budget was 138 pages, and then you had the PowerPoint. So I want to make sure that we have an active budget committee. We only see portions of it, like the 2.9 million we need to cut, but we don't know where that came from. So you need to plan. We'd also review the role of middle management. After unification, we were promised that it would streamline positions, but our organizational chart doubled, so we need to really look at the positions. We also need to stop hiring so many consultants and reduce our legal fees. People need to do their jobs, especially when we're paying high-level professional salaries. So we need to start with the students first and then build out from that and get away from the thing that you spend from the top and whatever's left goes to the students.
Thank you. Ms. Cardenas. I'm sorry, Ms. Ornelas. I gave you a new last name.
So I agree with Aaron, and I agree with Michelle. The budget obviously is, well, aside from it being a big document, I myself would like to be better versed on the budget and the details and all of the specific numbers. But I do agree that we need a committee, a task force that's assigned just to the budget. And I personally would like to see, like Aaron said, board members, parents, people from different areas of our community form part of that committee so that we can have input from them and work towards making the necessary cuts or changes and work that we need to get the district in a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, District 2, Mr. Sandoval.
I think this is a place where I could really help out. I do this for a living. I'm used to getting data, financial data, and analyzing it and finding where the waste is. I've been doing this for 15 years. So I would expect to get that level of detail. I would demand it because we do need to see exactly where everything is going. This deficit is huge. We're going to lose our reserves in 3 years, according to projections. That's going to mean tough choices, unfortunately. So everything has got to be on the table. Yes, we'll look at consultants and we'll look at our legal fees and all of that, but I'm afraid that won't be enough, right? So we're going to have to be very, very intentional and very much communicating with the public on what we're going to cut and why we're going to cut it. So, but those cuts are going to have to come from somewhere.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next question. Right now, the district is looking to applying for a bond limit waiver. This would allow the district access to all of the remaining bond monies before the scheduled date. How would you prioritize spending across all the school sites with the remaining approximately $30 million? And we'll go again to District 4, Ms. Colbeck.
That's kind of a difficult question in a minute because there's two separate bonds. So one bond is for the high school and one bond is for the elementary, K-8. And we have very great needs. So priority number one is, what are those needs? We have to replace or retrofit the building at Isbell, which was $20 million, but you can't really say to do that. We have to do regular maintenance, like roofs and those kinds of things. That is another thing that we need a facilities committee. We need input because, again, you need to plan, plan, plan. You can't just fix a roof and then find out that something else was bigger down the line. You need to know where your money is going.
Thank you. And for the other candidate from District 4, Ms. Ornelas.
There is a lot that needs to be fixed, like the building at Isbell or the pool at the high school or the roof for the, I believe it's the girls' gym. And it sounds like a lot of money, but it can easily be spent on fixing the major things that need to be fixed for the district, but I do think that it's something that needs to be addressed one thing at a time, or that committee that we've talked about having for the budget specifically, if we were to get access to those funds before the date that we're supposed to, then we would really have to look at it and use it the best possible way to make sure that we're getting the most out of those bonds.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval.
I would first want to know what the capital improvement plan is across the district. We've talked about Isabel, and this is one of those things that you're going to get from me. I mean, I've said it already, all things need to be on the table, right? Does spending $20 million to get Isabel up and running the smartest move, right? Considering all the needs that we have. I'm not saying I'm for that, but I'm not saying I'm against that either, right? We have to be smarter because we're poorer. I mean, I don't understand why we don't understand that Santa Paula is a disadvantaged community, and we have to use our resources really, really carefully, and we can't let anything, stand in the way from improving the scores of our kids, right? That's got to be the number one thing. So when we do have big expenses, we really need to look at those very closely to see, is this the best way to spend our limited funds? So, and that includes the pool, and it includes air conditioning and all the other things that are on the table.
Thank you. And now for our two candidates from District 5, we'll start with Mr. Dunkel.
Well, first, I would like to note we do have a number of historic properties that are owned by the school district and operated as schools here. I do think that we ought to be working to build relationships with our assembly member and senator to see if there's a way that we can leverage that bond money as matching funds, say, to rehabilitate our historic school properties. I know the state, this is something that the state is motivated of doing, and I don't know if there's a program currently that we could receive assistance in navigating, or if our assembly member and senator could, maybe even create a program legislatively that we could be a pioneering school district in, and actually being able to leverage those funds to serve our schools here. I think this is the kind of creative thinking we need to bring to the table before just thinking about cuts immediately.
Thank you, Mr. Dunkel. And Mr. Wilson.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Right now, the district is looking into applying for a bond waiver. This would allow the district to access all the remaining bond monies before the scheduled date. How would you prioritize spending across all the school sites with the remaining approximately $30 million?
Okay. Interest rates are at all-time lows, so it is a reasonable time to be thinking about long-term expenditures like that. We have, in the past, we did a facilities master plan that looked at the entire district, and that was an example of bringing in consultants. It was an enormous document. I think it could be probably updated without having to go to such great lengths, but there's a time and place for consultants because they have the expertise to help a board with decisions like that that are truly monumental, and I think we owe it to the community to study those sort of things with help when necessary.
Thank you.
Okay. So, are you satisfied, are you satisfied with the level of employee diversity throughout the district in the teaching staff, administration, and classified staff? If not, what can be done to improve the numbers and retain staff? For this question, we'll start off with District 4 and Ms. Gabriela Ornelas.
Okay. Well, I'm not so well versed on the diversity in staff and classified staff, and So I would like to learn more about it and get a better understanding of it, so then I can have a better form an opinion on that, or how we could change it or bring more diversity to our district. Thank you.
And then we'll stay in District 4 and allow Ms. Colbeck to provide a response.
Since 90% of the classified staff are from Santa Paula, they are Santa Paulans, and they are very diverse. As far as the faculty, they are as diverse as the market will bear. We try and bring back our own. I know one of my daughters works for the school district, and we also always look for the bilingual, biliterate, only because it is easier to reach the students. As to trying to do that, you go out to get the best person possible, whether they're green, red, or blue. It doesn't matter. If that person fits the job, that's what we want for our students, because we want our students to be able to compete in the global world as everyone else. So you always go after the most qualified employee.
Thank you. We'll move to District 2. Mr. Sandoval?
You know, there's my work at Channel Islands, right? I see a lot of kids coming from here, right? And I see a confidence, right, that they don't necessarily have, right? I think there is something about, you know, having people who are culturally competent, right, and that know the community well, because there is, I mean, I'm a sociologist, right? I mean, go figure, right? You know, I know that those things do make a difference. Does that mean that you bring in unqualified people? No, right? Of course not. We want to have the highest standards that we can, right? But it is a complex issue that we should be looking at. You know, not a quota thing or anything like that. That doesn't work, right? But we should be sensitive to, you know, the fact that we live in such a diverse community.
Thank you. We'll move over to District 5. Mr. Wilson?
I think we have a wonderfully diverse staff, and I think that Trustee Colbeck was correct that we have a lot of employees from Santa Paula. As part of my involvement with Santa Paula Rotary, for the last 20 or 30 years, we've been hosting a new teacher welcome barbecue at my house every fall. We're not doing it this year, thanks to COVID, but I've seen there's a very wide array of you know, ethnicities and backgrounds, and I think that the kids I see through my work as the treasurer for the Santa Paula Education Foundation and the scholarships that are given every year, I think the kids are coming out with confidence, and I think that comes from a pretty diverse staff that exists now.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Aaron Dunkel.
While I am not familiar with the demographic census data for the district, I have had a number of conversations with CSEA, and if their leadership team is any indication of the diversity of the staff in the district as a whole, it does seem to very accurately represent the demographic background here in Santa Paula. I think that is very, very good, and that we have to remember in managing that the school district is the single largest employer within the city limits of the city. That's a huge responsibility to serve not only educating our students, but also the families who are the breadwinners for their households. So I think, you know, we're doing a good job there, and I'd like to see us continuing in that direction.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, that concludes our round of questioning. Each candidate will now get 1 minute to sum up for the evening. Mr. Wilson, let's start with you.
thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the library, which was converted from a Safeway grocery store into the library by my grandfather's architectural office. Thank you to Manuel Minjares and Lorenzo and our translators. And I hope to be able to serve the community as a trustee. And I think I have skills that I've learned from prior time on the board. And I think especially in these challenging economic times that what we went through in 2008 is applicable. We've also, like I mentioned, the bond money for the science and technology building at the high school. We were able to triple that with state money, and that, like Mr. Dunkel was saying, that depends on state school bonds, and we have to wait for those. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dunkel.
I just want to echo gratitude for the chamber, the library, Latino Town Hall, LULAC, and Mr. Minjares for putting on the forum here today, as well as thank you to our translators for ensuring that our conversation is shared with all of Santa Paula. I found this to be a very good sharing of ideas, and if we can have this type of thing moving forward, even outside of board meetings with our, possible task forces, looking at the facilities development plan, those sorts of things with community involvement, I think we can really move forward in this city. If you don't know me, I'd ask you to go to my Facebook site. It's Aaron Dunkel for School Board, and I thank you all very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sandoval.
Thank you for putting on this forum. It's important to do. Thank you for putting on this forum. It's an important thing to do. And I'd also like to thank Pam Thompson and Tina Urias for their service to the board. This is not an easy thing to do. I know what I'm getting into. My dad was here at one point on the board as well. We have to start with the question, how well are we serving our kids? Every decision has to start there. But secondly, how are we serving our parents too? Because they're just as critical to their education. We have to be smart. We have to ask what's effective. We have to build partnerships across the community. The school district isn't educating these kids. We are, as a town. We need this to happen, and those partnerships, could be something that could really help our whole town, be better than it is today. Right? It's a great town as it is, but we could do better.
Thank you. And now for District 4, Ms. Ornelas.
Well, I'd like to echo what everyone else has said. Thank you all. I know it took a lot of pieces and a lot of work went into putting this together, so I really appreciate it. And I'd like to say, if you help me get elected, I'll work diligently to make sure that all our students have the technology and resources they need to be successful with distance learning, especially during COVID times. I'll make myself available to hear and advocate for parents in my district and make sure that their concerns are heard by the board. I will work to improve school, home, and district communication by hosting school board meetings in my district. I will work with the board to explore more options that fit families' needs, such as hybrid learning, dual immersion, and homeschooling. I will dedicate time and energy to learn more about the district budget in order to inform the constituents in my district. I want to be an active team member committed to working towards meeting the needs of our students and their families, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity of working with the new board. Thank you all for your time and for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Ornelas. And Ms. Kolbeck.
Thank you to all for putting this forum on. And my record as a board member proves that I do put students first. I fight for all students and treat everyone with respect. I believe all have a right to an opinion and should be heard. I believe that the district has very dedicated employees who deserve to be treated as professionals and have a say in how district finances are spent, along with stakeholders. If reelected, I won't rubber stamp, nor I'm afraid to stand up what is right. I also read the material. The system is set up so that board represents the taxpayer to use taxpayer money wisely to educate their children. Therefore, I will continue to work diligently to make sure taxpayers' money is used wisely to ensure academic success for all our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. This concludes our forum. Thank you to the candidates. Thank you to our moderators, Ned Branch and Manuel Minjares. Thank you to Lorenzo Marasa from the Santa Paula Latino Town Hall. Thank you to Lara Espinosa from LULAC District 17. Thank you to Patricia Savala and to our to our translators. The replay of this forum can be found on KDY TV. We had technical difficulties, but we will correct that, and it will be on there by tomorrow. So just so you know that. Join us tomorrow for the Chamber is hosting a community forum on policing. That will be at 7 o'clock. It'll be shown on local channel 10, this spcity.org, Santa Paula Chamber Facebook page. And also, please stay tuned. We're going to have a community college district area 3 forum immediately following this forum in about 15 minutes. So join us back in about 15 minutes. Thank you very much.